Hey, what's cracking everyone? Today I'm going to talk to you about a brand new product from Fosi Audio called the IM4. And Fosi, you guys are trolling us with this name, or at least I believe you're unintentionally doing so, because I did a short video on this briefly and I talked about the IM4 several times, and then I was called out by saying, are you really 4 or are you older than that? Nice little fun dad joke there. This is going to retail in at $99. If you buy it on Kickstarter, you can get it for as cheap as $80 right now, and that is through, again, the end of October. For that $99 price point, you are going to get a pretty nice package. It's going to come with this nice leather-like zippered case. It will come with 3 sets of tips that will either give you a balanced bass or deep bass type sound. It's going to come with 2 tuning nozzles. The included tuning nozzle on this is a black aluminum, and then you can use an alternate brass tuning nozzle. You're going to get a 4-core silver-plated copper cable that's a braided cable, and it's unbalanced, by the way, as well as a user guide and a manual, and that all comes inside a very nice box from Fosi Audio. And before I get any further, I do want to send a big thank you out to Fosi Audio because I met them while I was at Can Jam in SoCal. They handed off the IM4 to me and said simply to take it home and share my thoughts and opinions with all of you. Guys, I have been pretty impressed with the total package and the sound of the IM4, and I do have a lot of thoughts and opinions to share on that, which is all I was asked to do from Fosi Audio. So the IM4 includes a single dynamic driver that has a beryllium coated diaphragm. It also has a dual chamber acoustic design and is considered to be an open back IEM, which is pretty unique. Now the open back design is because if you notice the shell here, you'll see the 3 kind of grill openings, if you will, on the outside of the shell. We'll definitely talk about that more here in a bit. There's also acoustic damping material that has been put inside of the shell, and that will assist so that this isn't so bright or piercing in those upper frequencies. It will dampen those down, which is what damping material does. The driver itself is 21 ohms of impedance and has a sensitivity of 109 dB. So this is going to be extremely easy to drive. You can plug this directly into a laptop, phone if you have that type of plug-in, tablet, whichever. You could use any kind of dongle DAC. You're going to get a pretty close experience no matter what you use, outside of some synergetic things that you might get with different DACs or amps if you are a believer in that, and I am. The shell of the IM4 is a CNC machined aluminum alloy, and this will come in either silver or black, depending on which one that you decide to order. And I gotta say, it's very smooth to the touch with no sharp edges, and it's also extremely lightweight at just 7 grams per earphone. It is on the smaller side as far as shells are concerned, so when I compared it to something like the The-Audio Hype 4 that is much bigger than this, I think this is going to fit a majority of ears out there without as much discomfort. Now that's a very subjective thing for me to say because I get absolutely no discomfort wearing these IEMs in my ears. In fact, they're one of the most comfortable ones I've worn simply because it is such a smooth finish on that. It's not cold to the touch, but it's also not hot. Now comfort is going to come down to the tips included as well. So let me talk about that. You are given balanced bass or deep bass tips. Now that's great if you get a proper seal. And I gotta tell you, I get a proper seal with 2 out of the 3 sets of tips. The balance tips, the bass tips. But the deep bass tips, they are narrower on the bore, and they just don't seal in my ears. I have probably wider canals, I would guess, by that statement. And so you have to know if your ear canal shape is going to even assist with those different ear tips. And if you have discomfort, you're not going to want to wear them anyway. You can set those up in combination with the nozzles to kind of cater to your own sound preferences. So the nozzles included, there's the black aluminum nozzles. Those are the stock nozzle, if you will. They're going to give you more bass and less sibilance. I prefer the brass. The brass nozzles are a little bit more energetic in the upper mids to lower treble region. I don't find them to be super bright, but when I combine those with the bass tips, it is my personal sweet spot. But again, you could combine those even with the balance tips if you want something just a little bit brighter, and you're not going to drop out that bass response because that's just something that is inside of the magic of the IM4 with that acoustic chamber, I gotta imagine, to help out with that bass response. So you can kind of choose to cater to your flavor. Now, one other comment I will make is on the cable really quick, just to tell you that it is a simple 4-strand braided cable. It's a nice looking cable, but if you're familiar with something like the Meze Alba, the cable's just okay. It's kind of stringy. It does roll up really easy and it lays nice and flat. And it looks really good as a complement to the IEM. Now, you're gonna get a silver cable with the silver IEM, or if you have a black IEM, the black version of this, it's gonna be a darker colored cable. Okay, so as I'm going through my sound profile here, I will tell you that I use the iBass and Nunchaku because I wanted to try out some tubiness with it. I use the Campfire Audio Relay quite a bit because I just did a video on that, but I've even used the K7 from Fosi that I have in right now for a video, and I plugged this directly into a tablet or a laptop and can tell you that no matter what I used, I got a pretty similar sound experience, minus a few maybe technical things here and there, just simply from the synergy of the device that I was using. So what is that sound performance? Well, I will tell you that this IEM, no matter which nozzle or tips that you're using, does extend deep into the sub bass. And it goes even into some of the mid bass before it drops off just enough to make room for the mids. There is a slight amount of bleeding happening every now and then. I wouldn't call it muddiness, just a little bit of bleeding of bass into the mids that I pick up with this IEM, but it's not bad. And the mid range is more neutral, but it'll quickly get up there and go into that upper mid to lower treble region. This has some energy for it. So those of you sensitive to that region, I think that's something you should be aware of. If you don't like a more energetic type tuning, you may not enjoy this IEM because no matter what tips I used, I still got that energy. It can just be catered a little bit depending on the nozzle or the tips. And as it rolls into that upper treble, you know, that sibilance region, that brilliance region, it does do a really nice job of coming on back down so that it's not overly bright or piercing, but it does still provide some airiness, which is where I'm going to talk about the open back design of this. This does have a little bit of sound leakage. When I'm wearing these, not listening to music, I can hear things going on around me, probably more so than other IEMs. So that does kind of show how the open back design works. This is nothing like an open back headphone though, let's be clear. This still has a good amount of isolation because you're shoving something into your ear canal. It's just on the outside. It does add for some airiness of sound. It does add for some extra bit of staging. And I do want to give you some track examples just to kind of showcase that of the true capabilities of the IM4. First track I want to talk to you guys about is called Telepathy by Rez and Church, or Church. I'm not sure how to describe that name. But this track is an EDM electronic type track, and it's a really nice one to sample with this IEM because at the very beginning, you will get this very thick and weighted bass response. And this IEM has a lot of bass in it, but I wouldn't say it has a ton of rumble. So if you're looking for something to vibrate your ears, it doesn't get to that level. And I think that damping system really helps with that because it kind of gives it a pillowy, soft edge to the bass response while still having some of that sustain and some bass excursion going on. That's where I think it sometimes can bleed a little bit into the mid-range just because it has so much energy into the sub-bass region or into the bass region. It has some slam, and I love the bass response. If you're a bass head and you want a little bit extra bass, I think you are going to like how the bass is tastefully done on this IEM, especially in this price range. Is it the most tight and controlled? No, probably not all the time, but in this price range, I do think it punches above, and it's just an excellent bass response. All right, next up is a track called Tender Surrender by Steve Vai. This is kind of a electric guitar solo track, and sorry, I'm just gonna say it, but it's electrifying, the sound that I got out of this track. So it will get up there to the tolerance of some of you out there. So, and I'm talking about that 3 to 4K region, that bite, it can bite up there. It doesn't to me because it hits my ceiling at my tolerance level, and I actually prefer that type of energetic sound signature from this because it's gonna give you grip and grit, and it's gonna give a physicality to string instruments. Can you cater that a little bit with the different tips? Yeah, I think you can. Or even, you know, going to maybe the black nozzles, yes. What I find very good about this IEM is it's surprisingly detailed and separated in the mid-range for the different instruments, especially for this price point. All right, so what about vocal performance? Well, to showcase that, I have another track called After Midnight by Hannah Bull, and I'm sure I butchered that name again. But this one has a good way of showing you separation between vocals and instruments. Her voice is going to be very focused, and it is in this track, and I do think that this IEM especially will push vocals more towards you than away, or at least make them more present than they will away from you. So if you like that type of sound performance from your vocalist, if you're a vocal performance person that you like that, I think you're going to dig that out of this IEM. It does not become overly sharp or harsh. And again, I'm going to go back to that damping. I do think that assists with that there as well. And again, going back to trying out different nozzles to kind of cater that. This track has several instruments going on besides just guitars and drums and things. There's lots. And this does kind of show the limits of the technical performance of the driver, but it's still very, very good. There's still enough separation there to where, again, it's musical and separated enough to be an absolute performer that it is from the IM4. But let me talk about one more thing that I really enjoy about the IM4, and that is Borderlands 4, or gaming. This has been so much fun to game with because this just has everything I want from gaming. It's got a good amount of bass response for explosions and things to keep me engaged. It's got enough brilliance up top so that it's not piercing or fatiguing, but open. And that open back nature of it makes it an open world type experience. So when I'm playing a game that's an open world type experience like Borderlands 4, I get that open experience versus a more intimate one. And then with the mids, with that upper mid-range energy, what I like about that is when you have spoken dialogue or any type of music or, type of sound effects coming through, they're showcased there. But not more so because you still have the rest of the frequency response represented very well. This is not a V-shape tuning, but you can make this V-shape with certain combinations of nozzles and tips. But my God, is it a ton of fun to game with. In fact, this is going to make probably my recommended IEM at $100 to game with, hands down, until I hear something better, which who knows, could be tomorrow. That's how IEMs are. But I'm telling you guys, and that's one of the first things I said to Fosi Audio was, you guys made one hell of a gaming IEM, and they truly did. All right, guys, so as I wrap up my thoughts on the IM4, as you have obviously guessed, I do love this IEM, and for $100, I know the competition is fierce in that $100 range, but this one definitely makes my list for a IEM. I would recommend at $100. Now, I have popped some graphs up through this video so that you can kind of see what that sound signature looks like versus what I'm trying to tell you and what I experienced. But I will tell you, graphs don't always speak the full story. So please remember that, because the graphs do show some really high energy in that upper mid lower treble. And I just didn't find it to be so much high that it was too much for me and my tolerance levels. And again, the damping, I'm going to go back to that again, because I do think that was a very smart decision to do with this IEM so that it became more softer on those edges. And that's what I really like about this IEM, is how well it caters to that so that it's not overly sharp or overly piercing. It's truly fantastic. So with that, guys, I want to thank all of you for watching this video and spending some time with me today. And I will see you in the next one when I am 5.